And welcome back, everybody, once again to Hollow Knight. I am TJ the Obscure here with you. I made a slight mistake when recording. It's actually Windows' fault. I'm not going to go into it, but for whatever reason, my mic was disabled, so all I captured was the gameplay footage. So this is actually a voiceover that I'm doing. We are here in the area that we discovered last episode. The end of the tramway at the very bottom of Kingdom's Edge. I figured that we would start off the episode by exploring and seeing where this takes us. Although it looks like it's part of Deep Nest because you have the little creepy crawly there guys down there. And I see the bees. And I remembered that we encountered those guys once before in Kingdom's Edge. And you hear the buzzing, right? You hear all that buzzing in the background, so I figured that this was going to be some kind of bee-themed area, giant nest, fighting a queen bee, something like that. But man, it surprises me so much that we still have these huge areas that we have yet to explore. Going into this game, I really did not think it was going to be as extensive as it is, but it's been quite nice to partake in the adventure, and they're still updating it too. An update was released not too long ago that added a bunch of new content, from what I understand, at least. At least the only thing that I know for sure that they added was a stag station. So beyond that, I don't know what else they added. Maybe, in fact, maybe this area is one of the areas that they added. I'm not entirely sure. So I'm still trying to piece together the story. What exactly is going on? I think once I defeat the game, I'm gonna go and try to do some reading to see if I can figure out what the heck was actually happening. I wanted to test out this sidewall to see if there were any secrets, but of course there were not. So I head back up to the top, and there we go. More bees, more bees. Like, this feels like a different area. It doesn't feel like it's part of Kingdom's Edge, but according to the map, it is. So yeah, still trying to piece together the story. I like this this idea that there was something that existed prior to Hollow Nest, which makes sense. I mean, of course, something existed prior to the Hollow Nest, right? But you almost get the sense that Hollow Knight took over, or not Hollow Knight, but the Hollow Nest and the King took over or somehow corrupted what was there previously. And it seems like the Queen's Gardens is I see the four there, but I wanted to see where this led us. It of course leads us back out into the main part of Kingdom's Edge. It seems like the Queen's Garden section and Green Path is maybe some of the remnants of that past civilization. Now, what strikes me about the differences between the Queen's Gardens and the City of Tears, is that right? City of Tears, I think. Is that one seems very industrial, very modern, very you know, with the buildings and everything, and one seems very natural. And we find this little, like I said, a bee's nest. Although there doesn't seem to be any path out of this room. So this room was solely to find Mr. Caterpillar. I know they're grubs, but I call them caterpillars. I prefer that, I think, for whatever reason. These bees respawn every time you leave the area, unlike other enemies. So that's definitely something to watch out for. Now, I get a little confused at this point because there doesn't really seem to be any way to go in that direction. We can, of course, go up. And this leads us, I believe it leads us back into the Royal Waterways. Yes. Right above Isma's Grove, which I never actually showed on in video. There's another caterpillar up there. But yeah, so there's this whole kind of, at least what I'm seeing is like a conflict between nature and industry, or kind of being one with the natural world versus kind of conquering the natural world. I may be reading a little too much into the story, or putting it in a way that will fit my own my own biases and my own ideas and arguments and whatnot. But I don't know. For me, at least, that seems like a pretty clear distinction that's made between two very important areas in the map: the Queen's Gardens and then the City of Tears, and what I assume was the home of the king, right? So this kind of the dangers of trying to mold the world to meet your own needs, I guess, is maybe one way to put it. And it reminds me of a class that I took a long time ago called, the title of the class was The Sacred in American Literature. And it kind of touched on these themes, this idea that essentially humanity lost something when we strayed too far away from the natural order of things. Anyways, I search around a while because I feel like there must be some other way to go. I head back out into Kingdom's Edge to try to find a different path down into the nest, because I assume that there's more to it than what we see there. In fact, down here you can even see that there's another area. I'm pointing to the screen right now so you guys can see me, but you can see there's another room off there to the right that we can't access. So I know that there's more to this nest, and I just need to find the entrance to it. So I'm gonna go ahead and skip ahead to when I do. Actually, you know what, before that I totally forgot. So I'm heading back through here to go sit on a bench so I can update my map, and I noticed this in the background. You see, those are the containers that the caterpillars come in. So I was like, okay, what the heck is going on there? And then I think I head back to the bench, update my map and everything. Then I'll go ahead and skip forward again. So I come back and I head up here, and I know that we've been up here before, and there's nowhere to go. I'm talking about what I just told you right now. But there's nowhere to go in this room, but it looks like you can drop down from above, or it's connected up above somehow. So what I end up doing is I head back into Kingdom's Edge to try to find the entrance to it. I thought maybe I could unlock one of these doors or something, but as you can see on the map, it drops down from above. So what I end up doing is I go out to Kingdom's Edge, and I go around. And that leads us to right here, which I don't think I'd been to this place before. Or if I had, I just didn't recall coming here. And you can hear the little voices, the little chatter in the background. It's a Tower of Love. And of course we use our love key that we found last episode, which it seems so very kind of naughty to me. The Tower of Love, the love key. And it's very creepy. We got things in the containers. Dead things, live things, mostly dead things though. And that creepy laughing voice in the background. Sounds very happy. And our new boss fight, right? And this is the Collector. Reminds me a little bit of like Goro from Mortal Kombat with the 4 arms. I once played a character in a Dungeons and Dragons campaign that had 4 arms. It was interesting. I was pretty much Goro. I was playing Goro in a Dungeons and Dragons campaign. But much more chipper than Goro, right? Jumping around and laughing and having fun. I like this the concept behind this boss fight where the collector drops his collection on you essentially. And so you have to fight normal enemies along with the collector himself. And if you notice, I don't get any kind of soul from the collector. I only get soul from fighting the normal enemies. And I didn't figure that out until like right now, I think. So I was like, oh my gosh, we're gonna die, we're definitely gonna die, definitely gonna die. Stop coming, people. Let me heal. No, don't do it. Okay, dash, go fast, kill the things, hey, that's not cool. Oh, I think my son might be here. Be right back. Boy, my son has perfect timing there, right in the middle of the boss battle. And right as I'm about to die, don't do it, guy. Do not do it. See, I know what happens already, so it's hard for me to be surprised. I'm not a big fan of doing these voiceovers, but it was either that or release the video. I had no idea what was going on here. It's like he's just sitting there dripping his black goo. And I guess I can just beat up on him however much I want. It must be saved. It must be saved. I don't know what it refers to there and why it must be saved. But yeah, it was either this or release the video without any commentary or just not release the video at all. It'd be nice if I could make backups of my saves. And I'm sure I could do that if I were to access the save files, but I just haven't done so. Anyways, we defeated the collector, are able to free 3 of our caterpillar buddies. I thought for sure that one of them was going to be fake, and it seems like that should be something that you're able to read, but it's apparently not. And we get the collector's map, which shows us all of the grubs, all the caterpillars that we have yet to find. So you see one there in City of Tears. And one more over there kind of in the fungal wastes. Apparently in an area that we haven't even been to yet. I didn't even know. There's still areas we've yet to discover. But I think there's like 3 or 4 that we've yet to find. So we're actually doing surprisingly well in terms of our grub collection. So I spend quite a bit of time looking for a path into this bee's nest, and then I notice it right there. You can break through the wall, and that grants us access to the nest. You can see the entrance is down there at the very bottom, right by the tram station, pretty much. Now, I thought this was going to be an entirely separate area, but I guess it's part of Kingdom's Edge still. Which doesn't make a lot of sense to me, but yeah, that's the case. And I figured it was going to be like a queen bee that we had to fight for the boss battle. Honey and all kinds of things around. And those weird barriers, I'm not sure what those barriers are all about. But yeah, back to the story. Like so here's my theory, I guess, is there was a pre-Hollow Nest civilization that existed as one kind of with nature. And there's also this worm thing. And the worm thing, I wonder if it's like, gosh, what is that? Where there's like... Or maybe I'm thinking of Final Fantasy, actually. In Final Fantasy VI, there's this enemy that you encounter in this underground cave. And essentially, whenever you fight this enemy, no matter what you do, it ends up swallowing you. It like sucks you into its stomach, and whenever you get sucked in, you actually end up in like an entirely new world. And that's almost what it reminds me of. I'm thinking that maybe these worms like create these new worlds, right? And there was one world, which is what Queen's Gardens and the Green Path and the kind of natural world was all about. And then the king, I don't know where the king comes from, but the king decides to kind of tame this natural world, take it over, corrupt it perhaps, by building Hollow Nest. And eventually, what he discovers is that by doing so, he has essentially sealed the fate of all of its inhabitants. It's by trying to take over nature, it inevitably leads to your death, to the corruption of nature, to the corruption of in this case, all bugs or the entire bug species. And so the king ends up dying somehow, or maybe the king commits suicide. Something happens, or maybe here's another theory: is that the worm is mad at the king for trying to take over this world that the worm had created, and so the worm kills the king. Now, the protectors, the dreamers, right? These are the people who place the seal on Hollow Nest, perhaps to keep the worm out, to protect Hollow Nest from the worm, because the worm wants to essentially destroy all of Hollow Nest to bring it back to its original state, like Green Path, kind of the natural state of things. And so the Dreamers create this seal, but it's not really working all that well. And I think maybe the Dreamers realize that it's not the worm that's the problem, it's Hollow Nest itself that's the problem. That by building Hollow Nest, it essentially corrupted all of the entire world. And the only way to bring order back to things is to destroy Hollow Nest completely. To return to the natural order of things. And like I said, I took a class on this. Those bug things are freaking crazy. All bouncy like and bouncing off the walls, and we got the drill guys that honestly don't seem all that threatening because they get stuck in the walls and in the floor. But yeah, I took a class on this, and that's kind of what it was about. We read a lot of, let's see here, we read Surfacing by Margaret Atwood. We read The Things They Carried, or at least part of The Things They Carried by Tim O'Brien. It's about the Vietnam War. And I remember we read specifically the chapter titled Sweetheart of the Song Trebong or something like that. But it's about this kind of the guy like losing all sense of kind of civilized humanity and returning to be one with the natural world, and he kind of goes crazy and he just starts like killing things and whatnot. But it's this idea that, you know, humans, I mean, and there's this idea goes, it's found in religion, it's found in many different things, but essentially the creation of modern human civilization has totally thrown off the order of the natural world. And no matter what we do, no matter what new technologies we create, no matter what kind of progress we make, the only way to return to a natural order of things, well, in our class, it was kind of, we concluded that we can't really return, that it's corrupted, and it's pretty much until we go extinct, it's going to remain corrupted. But that there is something sacred about the natural world, and humans exist only to corrupt that sacred order of things. But that if we want to try to address the many problems that humanity is faced with, the only way to do so is to try to regain or return to nature. Now I see that there's a grub here, right? There's a caterpillar here, but I'm not entirely sure how to reach him. But and in the class we also we read a lot of Cooper. Cooper, is that right? Why does that seem wrong to me now? Like Last of the Mohicans. I'm sure many of you have seen the movie before. And my professor spoke a lot about kind of Native Americans and how the relationship that they had with the natural world is closer to what we need to essentially try to achieve, try to work our way towards. This part made absolutely no sense to me. You can break through so many walls in the game, and then all of a sudden out of nowhere you need to use an enemy to break through a wall. Like, it just made absolutely no sense to me. But if you're wondering how to break through that wall, that's how you do it. You use the big guys there. We have a shortcut back. I don't know, it's an interesting theory. And again, it's not a new one. It's been around for centuries. But I wonder if that's kind of what's going on here in Hollow Knight as well. Is that, like, you would think you would want to save civilization, right? Because it's like, well, that's what it's civilization, right? It's all of bug kind. But in reality, it's civilization that has led us to our current state, right? Still trying to figure out how to get to that grub down there, or up there, I guess. So, yeah, I don't know. That's kind of my theory at this point. But again, I really need to have like all the story in front of me so that I can start to put the pieces of the puzzle together. And maybe there isn't really a single answer or a unified kind of storyline here. I thought for sure boss fight right here, right? It has to be a boss fight. Instead we find the Hive Queen Vespa. Small thing, I know you're kind. If you attempt to resolve your past, then no, I am not the queen you seek. It is the pale beings that bear blame something. Though this hive exists within Hollowness, we play no part in its attempt at something. How did I read it so fast before? I have no idea. I could not read it that quickly this time. I thought maybe that's how we get to the grub. And I thought for sure this was going to be a boss fight, but it turns out it's not a boss fight. Which seems really odd to me as well. Like, this whole area just does not make sense to me. There's very little lore. It seems to serve very little purpose. It just has this one charm in it, and a few of the grubs. And maybe that's going to be in more of the DLC that they release. Maybe this will serve more of a purpose. But again, this hive seems to be something that was separate from the rest of Hollow Nest. So I think what I do now is I spend a good 10 minutes or so. Well, let's go ahead and do the dream nail, shall we? To rail against nature is folly. All things must accept an end. See, that line is what kind of clicked for me. Like, hey, maybe this is a commentary about the corruption of the natural order of things, and how humanity or bug kind or whatever tries to create institutions and all kinds of things that they think are going to control the natural order, but in the end all they really do is corrupt things and make things even worse. That really the only solution is to well, go extinct. It's so depressing, isn't it? It's just really, if you want to solve all the world's problems, we just got to kill all the people on the planet. It's like, oh man, it's such a. And honestly, most of the students in the class that I took were kind of creeped out by the professors. He was a big Took a lot of LSD in the 60s. He's an interesting professor. But yeah, I spent like the next 10 or so minutes trying to figure out how to get to that final grub in the area. I'll go ahead and switch to, or cut ahead to when I actually find it. So eventually I figure out that there's a hole in the ceiling up above. And you have to use your super dash to access it. Again, it took me a good, I don't know, 10-20 minutes to figure that out. But I think that leaves us with just like 2 or so grubs left to get, and then we're done collecting all the caterpillars. So anyways, I know it's kind of a weird episode, but hopefully it was enjoyable nonetheless. That's going to be it for me for today, everybody. Hope you enjoyed. Thanks for watching, and I will see you next time.